My name is Lynn Randall, and I am the Managing Director of Consulting Services for Merits. So I have a background in marketing and communications. I have done a lot of event work over time. And I've also done a great deal of consulting around experience design and measurement. So I have kind of a mixed bag of background and experience, but one of my real passions is on this topic. And so we'll get into a little bit of why, and hopefully I'm not seeing any repeats. I was called in as a last-minute pinch hitter for a speaker that didn't show up on the topic of training the other day, and I said, okay, well, I'll do some of these slides and someone else. So was anyone in my pinch hit session at 8 a.m.? Oh, excellent. It's all fresh. So you'll be shocked. You'll be surprised and shocked. And we do want to make this very interactive. So for those of you who are joining us virtually, if you could please tweet. So engage with us, and as you tweet, my lovely assistant John will be monitoring, and then any questions that come in from the Twitter feed or great suggestions, things of that nature, he'll be jumping in and, along with heckling, providing me with the input that you're giving us via the Twitter feed. So thanks for joining today. I want to start with a premise that I think it's important for us to sort of agree upon, if you will, and that is, at the core of it, events are about transfer. Transfer of information, transfer of knowledge, transfer of emotion, transfer of sometimes even money in some cases at events. At the core, events are about the transfer of belief. So agree? Agree? Twitter, hopefully, agree as well. So there was something that Daniel Pink said. Actually, I saw it for the first time. He did a TED Talk, and that quote really stuck with me. I have done a webinar on a similar sort of a topic, and the quote that he gave, and he said it yesterday during his luncheon keynote, was that there is a disconnect between what science knows and what business does. And so with that in mind, those two pieces of information, those two premises, that's part of what I want to talk about. So I'm going to kind of build a foundation off of that science, and then from there we'll move into the next topic, which is coaching. So how many of you actually deliver the speeches at events? Are you people that speak at events? Sometimes. Excellent, excellent. How many of you actually have other people that handle that transfer for you? All right, so there are other people that you depend on because your event relies on them to make that transfer of belief occur. So very, very important to figure out how to coach those people, how to get them to relay and transfer that information in a way that matters. And now let's add another audience. Let's add these people out here who are joining us virtually. So I have all of you in the room that I can see, right? And then I have a lot of people out there, I don't know how many, that I can't really see but are also part of this session and engaged with us here today. So you have to do even more coaching because it's a different thing when you start to add a second audience in addition to the audience that you have physically present and here in the room with you. So let's start with that first piece, transfer. I recently, or part of this morning's streaming studio, they interviewed me, and we talked a little bit about these challenges, and they said, so what is it about getting people to understand the message that you're putting out there? And I said, sometimes as event professionals, we forget, or somewhere we lose along the way, that we are presenting to something other than an abstract, right? We're not presenting to a company. We're not presenting to event professionals. We are presenting to human beings. And it's really easy to forget that when you can't physically see them. So they're virtually joining you, and you forget that they're human, right? They're people. I know you're people out there. So how is it that the human brain absorbs information? How do notions get into your head and stick? And that's really the core of what this first piece is going to talk about. How do we get those humans to absorb information? One of the things that we have done is, as an industry, I believe, Especially with physical events, we spend a lot of time thinking about making it comfortable. Is the room comfortable? Are the seats arranged in a way that's comfortable? So the physical comfort of our physical attendees is extremely important to us. But one of the things that I think we really haven't paid a lot of attention to is doing the same thing for the mind. So how are we relaying information in a way that's comfortable for our minds? So attendees are really joining in, and it's a much more comfortable experience for them, but also the messages stick. They stay. Notions get in the head, right? So one of the first principles is that the human brain cannot absorb information-rich data. So I have seen many, many times in presentations, especially if the topic is something that is scientific in nature, or it might be pharmaceutical, might be something technical. People put these incredibly complex graphs and charts up there, and there's all this stuff going on, and they think, oh, well, if I animate it, it'll be fine, and I'll just have this animated piece, and then it'll fly around. And well, the brain can't absorb that. It's too much. It's too much for us to take in. So that complex information needs to be broken down into small bits. And then the brain has time to absorb those bits, and then it can take on more and make sense of the whole. But it can't make sense of the whole all at once. Vision, the importance of vision. I cannot underestimate the importance of vision. Vision trumps all your other senses as a way that data, that transfer, that information gets into your head. So we're really, really incredible as humans at absorbing or at sort of taking in things using your visual sense. And in fact, there are a number of studies that have been done about this. If you think about your memories are, go back to my big eyeball looking at you. So what was your first memory? What just happened when I said that to you? Did you play a little movie in your head? Yeah, exactly right. That's what a memory is. A memory is a bunch of pictures. I actually walked through my first memory, and I won't bore you with that, but it related to my great-great-grandmother and how she gave me her ring and that whole experience. And I could tell you now what it smelled like, even what it looked like. I can remember the cut crystal glass on the table, and she sent me over to a drawer to climb in. So, but that's what just happened to you as well. You just played a little memory, which was a movie of, something that may have happened to you, well, hopefully, happened to you many, many years ago. And science is proving that this is fact by having done a number of studies around this topic. The one that I usually quote is John Medina in Brain Rules, talks about the fact that if you hear a piece of information, I'm just telling you this, there's nothing supporting me, all you have is just me talking to you, 3 days later, you will remember 10% of what I said. But if I add a relevant visual to what I'm telling you, 3 days later, you will remember 65% of what I said. Now that's pretty powerful because we don't just hold these things for fun. We actually really want people to take all of this information in and remember it and use it and make it active and part of their lives, right? So why is this? Why is vision so important? It is because it was really useful for us to evolve. So if you look at our caveman past, our evolutionary history, when we saw something new input, took it in, and we had three things that were possible. We could either fight it, we could eat it, or we could mate with it, right? Those are the three options. And because of those three things, and those entered through visually, that really helped us to safely evolve. But that's why it's so powerful, more than taste, smell, hearing, anything else. That's why sight is so important. And in fact, as you're starting to build out presentations, you don't have to put everything in writing. If your visual is powerful enough, then you don't have to actually tell me what that says, because actually I don't know what that language is here, but I don't speak it. But I will tell you this much, whatever it's telling me, I don't want to be this, so I am not going to walk that way, because maybe it's quicksand, but whatever that is, I don't want to be part of that. And so the brain actually is a really, really great way to process information, and we don't have to give it every single piece. It will fill in the blanks. it will fill in a pattern and fill in gaps. And so as we build our presentation, it's a great thing to do to sort of put patterns because they're subconsciously processed. So again, it's easy for the brain because your brain isn't, really working very hard to understand that information. And then there's another piece. So we have break it into small bits, time to process. We have patterns, understanding patterns. And then we have when your dog steals your car and drives it. I'm kidding. It's novelty. It's something that is, humorous or unexpected or unusual. I tried to be humorous, but amusement. We'll call it mild amusement. That's helpful because that wakes up the brain. And then you remember what it is that you've talked about. And this next one is one that is a very hard-fought perception to change. Business loves to think that everything has to be rational. So you work with people and they say, well, I have to have the data, I have to have the facts, I have to have all of this stuff, and it has to be incredibly rational or nobody's really going to get my message. And that's not really true. What we found is that the brain has two interacting functions, rational and emotional. And you have to have both. So you can't just have one or the other. You really need both in order for your message to come across. So as we're coaching our people and building out presentations, it's important to have both sides of that. And in fact, this whole topic of emotion is very popular right now. So you see all sorts of information coming out. There was in September, Harvard Business Review had an article about when emotional reasoning, which I had a little trouble with that, but when emotional reasoning trumps IQ. And that talks about the fact that emotions are so much more powerful. Actually, when you experience something, you bring it in, you touch something, smell something, hear something, taste something, see something, it enters your body as an electrical impulse. So you have all of these little electrical things that are entering your body, and it goes from cell to cell, moves its way up your spinal cord, and then through the center of your brain, which is where your emotion center is, before you can logically think about it. So everything we experience emotionally first, and then we can, so if you have a visceral reaction to something, that's exactly why. It's, that emotion is the first thing. So I have a question, both for my Twitter audience out there, John, perk up, wake up, and for you.
I'm awake.
For you. Okay, so recently I had a webinar, again, I mentioned on a very similar topic. It was for MPI. And one of the comments that I got back from a guy was like, oh, yeah, this isn't anything new, or, we've seen this all before. Changing pictures, changing text for pictures, we've known that forever. And the comment that was a comment back was, really? Then why are people still doing it? So what is it in presentation development, we just talked about this, that matters other than replacing text? So shout something out. What did you hear that I talked about? What's one of the ways that we need to change the way that we present? Give me something. Throw me a bone. People doing things, active interaction, absolutely. Absolutely. Because that is actually exercise, and keeping people active makes the brain perk up. So that's an incredible way. Any other thoughts? Any other ideas? Shock. Shock and surprise, exactly. I love that one. I love my little dog driving a car. Maybe you'll see another couple of surprising things. Anything else? Images and things that, excellent. Oh, I almost would, if I had $1, I'd pay you right now for that. So the comment back was things and images that connect personally and matter to your audience and your attendees personally. Very, very important, and actually a great segue. So coaching. One of the things that we have to do in coaching is really understand our audience. But, and there are a couple of other things. And as we start this process of coaching other people to speak and to engage and all the stuff that you're seeing us do here today, one of the most important aspects is you cannot build your presentations in PowerPoint. How many of you start by building your presentation in PowerPoint? Yeah, exactly. What that does is it becomes a Word document, right? You just put your bullets down, and then it's a Word document. So when you're coaching others, what I recommend is you actually give them homework. So they have to start in Word. They have to start with a document that is, an analog document, if you will, that goes over things like, what's my purpose? Why did you all come here today to listen? Because, what's the goal? What do we want to accomplish? And who are you? Are you people that actually deliver presentations? Do you speak yourselves? Or do you coach others? Because what you do and what you care about should tailor what I talk about. And then from there, then you can start to say, okay, what's the when, where, how of my presentation, and sort of build it out from there. So what I recommend is that you actually have people build out this analog outline. The first thing you do is talk about clarifying the outcomes. And what I mean by that is the one sentence description. So Twitter, perfect example, is what is your Twitter-esque sentence about the presentation that you're making? And I will be vulnerable to you and expose to you what my Twitter-esque statement is for this presentation. So when I started to build it, I said, okay, what do I want to accomplish? What do I want to have you walk out and do, think, or feel differently? And mine was applying the fresh lens of science and a different approach to optimize presentations for a virtual or hybrid experience. So that's what I'm hoping to do. So I am hoping that I give you some science that you can then take out to your speakers, because I'll tell you, they're firmly entrenched. They do not want to change the way that they do their presentations. I have a very good friend of mine that's here, and I won't say his name, John Grosshandler, but he was someone who was very entrenched and did not want to believe that he couldn't just put his bullet points and his words up there. And so it has taken me almost a year of coaching with him, but he's now not putting words and just typed bullets on the screen, but he's using visuals. The other thing is, if you'll notice, when that came up, it was 0.5 seconds or something in total for that thing to play out. You could read it way faster than I could speak it. So when you have bullets up there, and I was, sort of saying it at the same time, when you have bullet points up there, the brain goes on to something else. The other thing that it does is it contextualizes, so each of those little letters becomes a picture. And then that picture is processed in your brain. So, skip the middleman and just go straight to the picture, and your brain can process it, and it's a little bit easier. Know your audience. See this novelty. This is my cute little surprise guy. So who's your audience? What do they care about? What are they worrying about? What's on their minds? Maybe they have, in the case of this presentation, maybe they have a group of people that are delivering information and they're kind of boring. And, maybe people are dropping out of sessions, or maybe people are doing other things while they're in sessions. I pressed the... Oh, the secret black button. Sorry, I banged it against my side. I thought it was a tambourine or something. Okay, so, for example, this guy, he is worried about the wall that's coming at him at 80 miles an hour and how to avoid that. That's what he's thinking about, right? So if you know your audience and you can sort of crawl into their head, it helps you to say, all right, then this is the tactic that I need to take. This is the approach, and this is how I'm going to connect with them personally with something that might be emotional to them and matter to them. Once you kind of have that figured out, then you create the story. Then you craft your narrative. The other piece of it is be your authentic self. So I'm kind of a goofball, I'm kind of a nerd, which is reflected in the little jokes and stories that I tell, but that's what makes me more comfortable as I'm speaking. But understand who really are you, and how do you want to show up? Do you want to show up as authoritative? Do you want to show up as someone who is approachable? Do you want to show up as, how do you want to present, and what is comfortable to you? Who is the authentic self? And what is your passion around the topic that you're presenting? So there's a reason that someone has asked you to present on this topic, and if you aren't passionate about it, nobody else is going to be passionate about it either. So what's your point of passion? And I will once again make myself vulnerable and reveal to you what my point of passion is on this topic. and anyone that knows me knows that this is totally true, we need to start a revolution in our industry. Do you agree? Thank you. Passion, come on. Do you agree? Yes. Excellent, excellent. I kind of started on this topic probably maybe a year and a half ago. And at Merritt's we have something called the Merritt's Institute, and we work with neuroscientists and study the brain and how we can then apply that to what we do for a living, optimizing people, et cetera, et cetera. So we had this thing called a MindSpring Forum, and everybody had to use Pachachka-style presentations. And for those of you, how many of you are familiar with Pachachka? Excellent, excellent. The man in the red sweater gets the second dollar whenever I get my... So it is 20 slides, 20 seconds per slide, so you're timed, and then sit down. That's it. That's all you get. It's also very similar. The TED Talks, very similar in nature to that or in style to that. They're very limited in time, and then you deliver your information. And I built my outline, and what I said was, I want to change Merritt's presenters, so I didn't even broaden it out to the industry, Merritt's presentation style, one speaker at a time. And it has taken off like wildfire, and now I have advocates, and now actually people have, like, Michael Doyle and Virtual Edge have said, yeah, you know what, this is a topic that I think people would be interested in. I think you should talk about it. So I feel like my passion is now spreading out because we've been able to pass the word along, and hopefully I'm creating other advocates and giving them tools and helping them to help other people so that we don't have to sit through other presentations where you've got all of this extraneous information and busy, graphs and charts and type, etc. Do you like to sit through those presentations? No, nobody likes that. So, once you've built your outline and you have all of those things laid out and you're crafting your narrative and you know who you are and you know what your point of passion is and you know what you want to tell, then you can start to build your slide deck. And when you build your slide deck, and this is important because this is the other thing that people love to do, all right, I'm only going to give you 5 slides. Get your stuff done. I'm only going to give you 5 slides. Well, if you're doing it right, you can say, I'm only going to give you 10 minutes, but in that 10 minutes, you could have 20 slides as long as there's something like, this. It's the core. It's one single point per slide, 1 point per visual that you're trying to get across. Get to the core. Eliminate the extraneous, yummy avocado, and just stick with the core right there. And here's another principle, which is, I'm just about to lose you because it's been 10 minutes since I asked you something, since I told you a story, since I made you do something active in some way. They say like 7 to 10 minutes, the brain loses attention. So when you're coaching your speakers, what you have to tell them is, and especially with a virtual audience, every 7 to 10 minutes, ask them something, do a poll, tell a story, engage that brain emotionally, or you're going to lose them. Surprise them, shock them, drop something, be loud, do something every 10 minutes that's going to wake that brain back up. So I'll tell you a story, because that's one of the ways that you can wake the brain up. Once upon a time, there was a healthcare organization. And they had that problem that I referenced just a minute ago, which is they had this conference. It used to be a physical conference, and they had moved it to being a virtual-only conference. So it wasn't even hybrid, it was virtual-only. And even when it was a physical conference, the conference organizer said, we've got all these people, and they're researchers and physicians and, men of science and men and women of science and people that deliver day-to-day healthcare, but they are terrible speakers. They're so boring. Nobody wants to listen to them, So I said, all right, hopefully I can help. So we created coaching sessions for their speakers, and we met with them. We did this all virtually. So even the delivery of the information was done virtually. And we started with all the stuff I just talked to you about. You can't process information-rich data, visuals every 10 minutes, the narrative, the passion, all of that stuff. Even, see, the surprise. Woo, surprise right there. So once we did that, then we scheduled sessions where we sat down in this case, it was teams of presenters, which actually is another best practice I'll get to a little bit later, but it's a little bit easier if you have more than one presenter trying to, engage with everyone and read the Twitter feed. And you know what? I forgot to ask you if I got any responses, so you got to jump in if you get any good ones. You jump on in. I know you're not bashful, John. So we met with them individually, and we did that exercise. So we walked them through that outline, and they were so skeptical. I mean, it was, just dragging them along, saying, no, really, seriously, you cannot put that graph up there because nobody's going to know what you're talking about. And they'd put these really complex, because it was research statistics and data that they were putting out there, and they said, no, I have to put that out there. I said, okay, well, tell me what the point is. You can make one point on the slide. Tell me what that one point is. Well, it's, this, and it would be one dot on the graph. I said, okay, well then I'd like for you to redo that whole graph and just show that one line and just highlight that one bar. So really trying to get them along, and people were like, I don't know if I believe you. I think that I have to read things. I can't listen to what people are saying. I have to read things before I'll understand it. So I said, okay, sent them off, gave them all the tools, talked them through it, and sent them off to build their slides. And I was there for them. I, gave them some resources for how to find where are places online where you can go to get slides where, you have unlimited rights, or you can pay the rights fees because you don't want to get in copyright trouble and all of that sort of stuff. So I gave them all of that kind of support, sent them off to do the work, and then we got together another time for a final run-through where they actually presented to me their final stuff that they were going to pull together. And I had to do a little bit of tweaking and a little bit of coaching, and there are some who just don't want to be coached. And you probably know that. There are just some that are just going to do what they're going to do. And those people, you're put your energy into the ones you can change, because those people may not come along, or it'll take them a lot longer. You have to, like my friend, spend a lot of time with them and get them there little by little. But the others, it was a big, big culture change. And so afterwards, I asked them all. I said, so what was this experience like for you? And on a scale of 1 to 10, it was 1 to 10, tell me, how comfortable were you delivering this information? 95% of them said, I was extremely, extremely comfortable. And then I said, okay, well, what about in comparison to other presentations that you've given? And they said, again, 9 out of 10 on that scale were way more comfortable with the information than they ever had been with any of the other presentations that they'd ever made, because they knew it. They weren't just building something out that was an outline that they could read while they were presenting. They knew it, and they knew the subject, and they knew what they wanted to say. And in fact, 94% of them said it was way more effective than any of the other presentations that I've given. So skeptical, but once they get there, they're your advocates that are going out and carrying on that engagement and becoming your advocates. So question number 2 for my Twitter audience. Kick in, poor John over here is getting bored. What can we do every 7 to 10 minutes to regain attention? I didn't ask that the first time, did I? No. Okay.
You can ask a question.
Question mark? What can we do?
No, I'm saying,
Oh, so he says, you could ask a question. I was like, oh, well, I thought I just asked it. No, that's the point. Okay, yes, you are exactly right. Donnie, you can ask a question every 7 to 10 minutes. What else can you do?
Poll the audience.
Poll the audience, exactly. Yes, no, feedback. What do you think about this? Where are you on this topic, on this, and actually I really like the polling, because then you can use that later on and even build it in as part of the information that you're delivering, right? So, okay, let's just see how many of you are doing this, and then you can use that information and say, oh, we've got some work to do, or wow, we're way better than we thought we were. So I love that one. Anything else before we move on? Yeah?
discuss with your neighbor.
Excellent. Excellent, excellent. And that's a wonderful one, because it also embeds one of the principles of learning, which is if you do something active with that information, you're far more likely to move it from your short-term memory into your working memory, and then really keep it into your long-term memory.
Lynn?
Yes?
We do have a comment. There are multiple comments from Twitter, but this one is particularly interesting, I think. Sam Smith suggests that we could have John dance.
John, are you a dancer?
No.
Would you like to dance?
No.
All right, well, Sam,
I wanted to give Sam a shout out, right?
Yeah, Sam, excellent. Thank you, Sam, very much. I would like to see John dance, but apparently we're not gonna get that. So something surprising or unexpected, which would be John dancing, would be an excellent way to handle that. Okay, so now we've talked about delivering the information, given those scientific principles. We've talked about how to coach others. So where do you start? How do you work with them to get them to deliver the information and get that transfer to occur in the way that you need? What about adding the second audience? What happens when you have more than one audience? And this gets really tough and it gets pretty tricky because everything becomes more complex. Absolutely everything's more complex. Now you have to worry about having a moderator. So one of the reasons we were a little bit late with our session today is my moderator wasn't in the room. And I thought, well, that just is going to alienate all of my virtual viewers if I don't have someone who's keeping track of them and watching them. But also having a moderator in the room helps even with the physical room. So, they can help be that second voice, so you don't just have to listen to me talking. I can get some of you to say some things, and John can add some things in, etc. You also have to worry about things like, for today, it's great because we're using a streaming technology, so through my microphone you can hear what I'm saying. If you're using some other technologies, there might be a phone line, which is the way that you're connecting. Well, I travel a lot. I might have a tendency to want to use my mobile phone. Well, that is just not going to work well, and it might drop out. So do they have a landline? How much information is going to be sent through the pipes? How are we connecting in? Is it, or do we have videos that is, something that's going to be multimedia, which is another great way, by the way, to engage people, but a lot more bandwidth. There's just so much to think about and worry about. Things like lighting. So as you can tell, my wonderful cameraman who is helping all of our visual audiences, see what's going on today. I told him, I said, all right, I have to apologize because I'm a wanderer. They had this like coffee table here and they wanted me to sit in that chair and deliver it because then the lighting was going to be right and I was like, you know what, I just can't do it. I can't do it. I can't talk without using my hands, and I can't deliver a presentation without just a little bit of walking back and forth. So he gave me my parameters. He said, stay here, and then you can walk to here. But movement is an important thing to understand and know because every time I move, he's got to go, oh, there she goes, oh, there she goes again. So you have to have someone who knows and understands that you have to follow where your speaker is so that your audience that's out there virtually understands where you're going and what you're doing. Another thing that's a bit tough is right now we have one camera today, so that's on me speaking. But what I want to do is also talk to all of you in the room. Because you're awesome people and you have awesome ideas, and I like to also get you involved and you can help each other, etc. But nobody in the virtual audience can tell who's saying what out here because they can't see you. So, if you're going to have a lot of audience engagement, think about having more than one camera, thinking about having different lighting in the room so that people can really feel like it. They're, part of things. So the analogy that I like to use is with a physical event, you think of it more as like a Broadway play. So I am presenting live on this stage to you like a Broadway play. But with a virtual audience, it's actually live television. So it's more like a Saturday Night Live or something like that. So if I, step over the edge of the stage, it's Chevy Chase on the floor, it's live television. So, which would also be true if it were just Broadway. But, so think of it more like that in terms of the way that you frame things out and the way that you actually format for the delivery of information in a hybrid type of a setting. Questions? So, ask a question. You have to work with your speakers to understand what they are comfortable with. So there are some speakers who really like to just keep the questions till the end. And I always think, well, if I'm out in the audience and I ask a question, it pops into my head because of something that you just said. So if you wait till the end, it's just like way after whatever the point was that you were trying to make, and sometimes it just doesn't make quite as much sense. So I always like for people to ask the question when it pops in their head. You know, raise your hand, or if it's on the Twitter feed, John will tell me, and we can address those. But you have to understand what's comfortable for the speaker themselves, because if they're the type of person that they've got their script and they deliver it a certain way, it'll throw them off. And then it'll be a little uncomfortable and off-putting for the audience. We talked about having a moderator, and everybody, I'd like for you to give applause to John, because he really just volunteered, so if you would. Thank you. See, I just made you do something active. I woke up your brain. And you people out there, you virtual people, I hope that you clapped as well. So at any rate, yeah, your moderator is extremely important. And every session that you have to have two people. You can't just have the speaker. You have to have that moderator and have them understand what's going on and how to work with you, etc. The other thing is this is the piece that I'd love to be able to get some of your ideas and some of the stuff that maybe you guys are doing, those of you especially who are doing a lot of virtual event work. What ways can you engage both people at once? Because right now, my physical audience, I would say 1, 2, 3. I have 3 people with laptops, so they could, if I had, something that was part of my virtual solution or technology or platform, they could be logged in and engaged in the same way that the totally virtual audience could, but the rest of you couldn't, right? So the one thing that most people have is a smartphone. So if you really do want polling or something of that nature, there are a number of different types of mobile technologies and mobile applications that allow for everyone real time to be engaged in the same way. But the difficulty is, some people still have these kind of phones. They're all different sorts of phones. So maybe not everyone has a smartphone. So is there anything else? Maybe the Twitter audience has ideas?
Well, I don't have an idea here. I do have a question here saying we've noticed that there are many in the audience who never say anything or interact, and he's asking, well, how can we stimulate them?
Really?
I'm just reading the tweets.
I think, well, yeah, no, it wasn't me. Don't shoot the messenger. Well, there is, and there is actually an interesting sociological thing that goes on. Some people are a little shy. Like me. I'm very shy. So you may not want to stand up and say something or get involved or, actually I've had this question come up with activities. So even everybody says, oh yeah, it needs to be active and you have to get everybody involved and active. There is a neurological principle that is we want to avoid pain or move towards pleasure. So if I happen to be naturally shy, I am going to be fearful of and want to avoid being ostracized by the group or being maybe laughed at by the group, etc. So I feel uncomfortable if, oh my gosh, what if Lynn is going to say, yes, you, right there in the brown jacket, I'm going to call on you next. Well, that's threatening and that's kind of uncomfortable, and what if I say something that's, So it's a very difficult thing to get everyone, even in the physical audience, to be okay with or want to engage in that way, and I think that that's all right, because I want people to be comfortable, have a good time, and, enjoy the experience. The other neurological or neurosociological principle of what happens is, and this goes to the move towards something that's pleasurable, that is that we all are here in this room a community. We can all see each other. We all know a few things about each other. We know that we have some relationship to virtual events in some way, one way or another. We all know that we are interested in this topic, how to deliver content. So we have this affinity. We're a group. So I want to make sure that if I'm going to raise my hand and ask a question, it's going to be rewarded by the rest of the people in my community. So I want to make sure that so maybe there are some, and I know we've all had them in sessions where there are some people that just want to talk. They just want to talk, and you give them the microphone and they just want to take over and they just want to talk because they're rewarded because they really feel like they're more of the community if they're contributing in that way. So I guess my response is I don't think we're ever going to get 100% of everyone participating in exactly the same way, but I also don't think we want to do that because I think that people need to be comfortable with the way that they can engage and be involved.
Lynn, real quick then, as a follow-up, as a speaker, should you feel then comfortable, or should you just assume they're checked out? Or how would you encourage a speaker to say, hey, you know what, that's cool, don't worry about that, there's always going to be some of these people that just are that way? Or how would you speak to that?
Well, for those of you who are online virtually, I know that you're on another computer screen and that you've made me your secondary. So, I mean, seriously, if we're in a hybrid situation, we can't know. There may be people checked out there until I pointed at them and said, all right, I know you're not fully listening. So, in the room here, and especially now when we're using mobile technologies and Twitter and things like that, when people are doing this, they could actually be contributing. They could actually be tweeting and, being part of this. Or it could have been that there was something that I said 2-3 minutes ago that made them think of something else or was really compelling, and they wanted to either send a note to somebody or write something down. That's okay too. I mean, I think that it's all right. I'm not giving you permission to be checked out. No, we're good. We're good right now. So, but yeah, I think that, it's also a bit unfair, unless you're an incredibly charismatic and very compelling speaker. People just have a lot of things on their mind. So it's not an insult. I don't take it as an insult, but maybe I hope it's not an insult, that, that happens. It's, again, part of human nature. So I kind of come to the point now with where I ask you to get active with the information that I just gave you, and that is, what is the one thing that I said that either maybe you knew but kind of forgot about or weren't really applying anymore? Or what is the one thing that you thought, this is the thing that really is cool, and I'm going to start doing that right away? Yes. Oh, and I don't know if we want to...
I can...
Do you want to run with the mic?
And then...
John, dance over. Dance over with the mic. Look at that. See, I knew he could dance. I knew he could dance. Yes. Excellent work.
The one thing that stood out the most for me was don't start your presentation in PowerPoint.
Excellent.
I've even taken a writing class where they say write an outline before you write your paper. But
Yep.
I've never thought to apply that to my presentations.
Excellent.
So that was a big one for me.
Excellent. Thank you. See, I feel good. That makes me feel great. And I think also that reminded some other folks, oh yeah, that was a good one.
I came in late, but I liked the one point per visual. I thought that was really instructive. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, because, so many people just want to cram 5 things in on one slide, right? Yeah.
I'd say engaging people every 7 minutes was definitely the thing that is going to stick with me.
Oh, good. Yeah. And that is the other piece where you're building your outline. You kind of can gauge when you get to that 7-minute mark and think, okay, yep, now I have to do that sort of thing.
Well, I just want to thank you. This is excellent, and I want to also reflect that you're the living embodiment of what you're teaching us. I mean, I don't know you personally, but I mean, you have done what you've shown us, and you've given us actual things to do every 7 to 10 minutes. And it's funny. This is my last. I'm actually having to head out, and I'm glad because I think the speakers after this happened to me actually at PCMA. We had another speaker. I went to some how do adults learn the best. That was something that I started with. And then I went to the next session, and it was, somebody just talking at us for, so I really
you're not using any of the principles you're supposed to be using.
Yeah, so I really appreciate you giving us actual takeaways. What can we do differently? Thanks.
Well, and thank you. Actually, I very much am flattered and appreciate you saying that, but I said to Michael Doyle and to Donna Sanford that I worked with at Virtual Edge, I said, you realize how much pressure there is? Like, what if I get up there and, what if I get up there and, I'm not doing this stuff and people are... So I appreciate that I was able to actually accomplish that. So thank you very much. Yes?
Hey, hi. There was a moment when you had your glass of water and you spilled water out of it, and I was so intrigued by that because...
it was surprising and unexpected.
Was she doing this intentionally? Does she even know it's occurring? And I was just captivated by that water spilling out of the glass. So... Thank you. You kept my interest.
Sometimes you just need something little for people to focus on, right? And yes, I did know that it came out. It was not intentional. I am very clumsy. And so that's just the truth. But thanks.
Lynn, you kind of reiterated and you really showed it, the strong graphics that really catch your eye can be so powerful. You've had some beautiful graphics on your screen, and I just really like the way, because your mind kind of settles on them while you're talking, and I just think that really strong, beautiful graphics do a lot.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I like how you used your audience to summarize your presentation.
See, now I gotcha. I'm Huck Finn. Wasn't it Huck Finn that made somebody else paint the fence for them? Yeah.
It's beautiful.
No, see, you
I'm back
called me
here
out.
to see
You
if
called me
there's
out.
Lots of love about your visuals. Just trying to catch up.
I don't know if that
sorry.
means love or not. I'm
No,
old,
there's good
but-
love. No, about the visuals on your slides and that.
No, I did this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, that's about it. There's a great book, Presentation Zen, which has a lot of these concepts too that you
Yep.
could, I guess, point
Yeah,
out.
there are, actually, there are a lot of really good resources. I don't know where we are on time. If we want to just keep the conversation going, would be great as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, I'm sure somebody will put the hook out and, if it's time for us to move on to the next session, but...
It's 47, so I don't know what I'm not in charge of this
end on the hour?
conference.
I think we end on the hour, right? Oh, excellent. We can keep talking. 150. Oh, 47. Oh my gosh. Now I feel like I have to talk faster. So there are some really, really great resources. Presentation Zen by Gar Reynolds is an excellent resource. He has a online blog. So if you go to www.presentationzen, he comes up with a lot of great principles. He also references some of these other books. Bless you. Such as the other one I mentioned, John Medina, Brain Rules. And Brain Rules also has a very interactive website, but it was the thing that really started me thinking about all of this stuff and really kind of sent me off on my passion around this topic. TED, the TED Talks, we kind of referenced that that's a great example and places to go to look for good examples. They also have on the TED.com site, they have what they call the TED Commandments. And the TED Commandments are really actually a really good way to start to plan. If you're coaching and working with people that are building out sessions, if you sort of start with that and say, okay, look, here's your commandments around this, it's a great tool or reference. And then the other pieces I mentioned about finding online graphics, I will just caveat that you need to be careful about just using Google Images because some of those actually do have copyright restrictions, and I want to be cognizant of the fact that there are artists out there that put their photography out on the web and are not wanting people to use it for some sort of public or something that's going to be broadcast. I go to a site, there are several, but you have to pay for the rights. So the images actually cost some money. www.photo.com, and then JD Images, Getty Images. There are several of those. And then there are some like Stock Exchange, which is the free version of iStock Photo. I think it's something like, it's a really weird, it's like sxc.hu or something, but they're free rights images that you can use. So all of those things are important to kind of figure out where you're going to get your images and how they're going to be used because you don't want to get yourself in difficulty.
Speaking of photos, there was a question in regards to the 1 point per slide somebody asked about, well, am I not going to have a slide deck now that is 70 slides and they're all photos and now my deck is going to be huge? Does that ever cause problems with you or how would you address that, if at all?
They're huge. They're really huge.
You can compress the photos. I mean,
so you can compress the photos, and it's great if you have someone like John or Donnie or people who are adept at that sort of thing to help you out. I'm not very good at figuring out how to compress them, and so my files tend to be very, very large. I use file sharing sites like Dropbox.com because if I'm sending it to a conference organizer, I can't email it because it's way too big for my system. And then if you have videos and things like that, they do get large. But I also believe that over time, if we do our job in this revolution that we are creating, we inspire people with our revolution, that there are going to be bigger and bigger files. There's going to be more videos sent and included, and you put it on your ad stick, and instead of the conference organizers having it 3 days in advance, they may have to get it when you arrive, and so you have to sort of work things out in that way. But there are ways around it, and I do think that it's a trade-off, but it's, to me, worthwhile, if you guys all said all of that awesome stuff that I wanted you to remember, then I feel like I won. So I think it was worth, the effort, the size of the file, etc. So I want to thank you all. Thank you all for participating and taking part, and for my virtual audience for also participating and taking part, and start the revolution. So let's make that transfer happen. Thank you.